Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the UES Defiance, staring at the strange message that had just arrived. The screen showed symbols he had never seen before, but his computer was slowly translating them into English. As the words appeared, Jake's face grew serious. The message was from something called the Galactic Council. Jake had heard rumors about aliens living in other parts of space, but Earth had never made contact with them before. Now they were asking for help. "Sir, what does it say?" asked his second officer, Lieutenant Rick Barnes. Jake read the message again. "They want us to fight in a war. Something called the Zephyrian Empire is destroying other planets and killing entire species. The Council wants every available ship to help stop them." Rick looked confused. "But sir, we don't even know these aliens. Why would they ask us for help?" Before Jake could answer, another ship appeared near them. It was bigger than the Defiance and had diplomatic markings. Jake recognized it as the UES Harmony, Earth's only diplomatic vessel. "Captain Morrison, this is Ambassador Lisa Grant," came a voice over the radio. "I'm heading to the Council station to meet with the alien leaders. Earth Command wants you to escort me there." Jake had met Lisa before. She was smart and tough, but he wondered if she knew what they were getting into. "Understood, Ambassador. We'll follow your lead." The journey to the Council station took 3 days. When they arrived, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from different alien species were docked everywhere. Some looked like crystals that could fly, others were round and covered in strange bumps. Lisa took a small shuttle to the station while Jake waited in orbit. Through his ship's cameras, he watched her enter a massive meeting hall filled with aliens that looked nothing like humans. The main alien speaking was tall and made of what looked like living crystal. His name was Chancellor Thexvar, and his voice sounded like breaking glass when he spoke. "Welcome, human," Thexvar said, but his tone was cold. "We have called you here because we need every species to help fight the Zephyrians. They are destroying worlds and killing billions of innocent beings." Lisa looked around the room. She saw insect-like aliens with many arms, others that seemed to be made of water, and some that glowed with their own light. All of them were staring at her like she was something strange and unimportant. "What exactly do you want from humanity?" Lisa asked. Another alien stepped forward. This one looked like a giant praying mantis and spoke in clicking sounds that the translator turned into words. "Your species is new to space travel. You have not fought in real wars between stars. We need your mining worlds and your factories to build ships and weapons. Nothing more." Lisa felt anger building inside her, but she kept her voice calm. "And what about our military? Our soldiers and ships?" Thexvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your people have never faced an enemy like the Zephyrians. They create weapons from living things. They turn entire planets into death traps. Your primitive technology would be useless against them." On the main screen, images appeared showing the destruction the Zephyrians had caused. Entire worlds were covered in strange, growing substances that killed everything they touched. Cities were empty, their people gone without a trace. "We will give you simple patrol duties," said another alien that looked like it was made of flowing water. "You can guard supply lines and evacuate civilians. Leave the real fighting to species who understand war." Lisa watched more images of destruction. She saw children from different alien species running in fear, families being torn apart, entire civilizations disappearing. Despite the Council's rude treatment, she knew Earth had to help. "Humanity accepts," she said firmly. "We'll provide ships, resources, and personnel for this war." The aliens looked pleased, but Lisa could tell they thought they were getting a good deal. They believed humans would do the boring, dangerous work while the real species handled the important fighting. As the meeting ended, Lisa was given a data package with information about human duties in the war. Reading through it, she realized the Council expected humanity to lose a lot of ships and people. They were being given the most dangerous jobs with the least support. Back on the Defiance, Jake listened as Lisa explained what had happened. "So they want us to be cannon fodder," he said. They think we're too stupid and weak to really fight. That's exactly what they think, Lisa replied. But they're about to learn something about humanity that they don't expect. Jake smiled grimly. What's that? Humans don't know how to quit. And we really don't like being told we're not good enough. Over the next few days, messages flew between the Council Station and Earth. The alien leaders sent lists of equipment they wanted humans to build and bases they wanted them to guard. Each request treated humanity like a junior partner who should be grateful for the chance to help. But on Earth, things were happening that the Council didn't know about. Admiral Ryan Cross was reading the reports from Lisa and Jake. He was also looking at Earth's real military capabilities, things the aliens had never asked about. They think we're primitive, Ryan said to his staff. They've never seen what humans can do when we're angry and fighting for our lives. The Admiral began making plans. The Council wanted human ships for patrol duty. They would get human ships, but not the kind they expected. The Council wanted human soldiers for support roles. They would get human soldiers, but these warriors had been trained in ways alien minds couldn't understand. As the first human ships prepared to leave Earth, Jake received new orders. He was no longer just escorting diplomats. He was now part of humanity's war effort, whether the aliens wanted it or not. The Galactic Council thought they knew what they were getting when they invited humanity to join their war. They expected grateful servants who would follow orders and do the dangerous jobs no one else wanted. They were about to discover that humans had spent thousands of years fighting wars on a world that tried to kill them every day. They were about to learn that when humans agreed to fight, they fought to win. The war against the Zephyrians was about to change in ways no alien could imagine. Admiral Ryan Cross stood in Luna Command, looking out at the construction yards orbiting Earth's moon. Hundreds of ships were being built, but they weren't the simple patrol vessels the Galactic Council had requested. These were warships designed by humans who understood that space combat was just another form of warfare. Admiral, the Council representatives are asking when we'll send the mining support ships they requested, said his aide, Colonel Janet Morris. Ryan smiled coldly. Tell them our mining ships are being prepared. They'll be very surprised by what human mining equipment can do. 3 weeks later, Commander Amy Peterson received her orders aboard the UES Vengeance. The ship looked like a normal patrol vessel from the outside, but Amy knew better. Hidden in the hull were weapons and systems that no alien had ever seen. Commander, we're approaching the Kepler system, reported her navigation officer, Lieutenant Tom Bradley. Council Command wants us to run a standard patrol pattern. Amy looked at the tactical display. The Kepler system had 3 planets and a large asteroid belt. It was supposed to be safe, but Amy had learned not to trust supposed to be in wartime. Tom, ignore the Council's patrol pattern. We're going to do this the human way. Instead of flying in the predictable straight lines the aliens used, Amy had her ship weave through the asteroid belt. She used the rocks as cover and sent out small drones to watch for enemies. 2 days later, the drones detected something. Zephyrian scout ships were sneaking into the system, trying to map the defenses. In a normal alien patrol, they would have succeeded easily. But the Vengeance wasn't following normal alien tactics. All hands, battle stations, Amy announced. Tom, take us behind asteroid 2247. Weapons officer, prepare the surprise package. The Zephyrian ships looked like living creatures made of metal and flesh. They moved smoothly through space, their biosensors scanning for threats. Their commanders were confident. No alien species had ever detected their scouts this quickly. Amy waited until the enemy ships were spread out and relaxed. Then she struck. The Vengeance burst from behind the asteroid, firing weapons the Zephyrians had never seen. Instead of the energy beams most aliens used, Amy's ship launched kinetic projectiles, chunks of metal moving at incredible speed. The first Zephyrian ship exploded before its crew knew they were under attack. The second ship tried to run, but Amy had anticipated this. She had positioned more drones in the escape route, and they fired homing missiles that tracked the fleeing vessel. But Amy wasn't done. As the surviving Zephyrian ships regrouped, she did something no alien commander would ever consider. She rammed one of them. The Vengeance's reinforced bow smashed into the alien ship at full speed. Both ships were damaged, but Amy had planned for this. Her crew was strapped in and protected, while the Zephyrians were caught completely off guard. "This is insane," transmitted the Zephyrian commander before his ship broke apart. "No civilized species fights like this." Within an hour, all the Zephyrian scouts were destroyed or captured. Amy sent a report to the council, but she kept it simple. Patrol successful. Enemy scouts eliminated. What she didn't mention was how she had done it. Meanwhile, on the planet Sanctum 7, Colonel Ben Hayes was having his own problems with alien expectations. The Vex Collective, the insect-like aliens defending the planet, had very specific ideas about how ground combat should work. Colonel Hayes, clicked Commander Zilth AK, his mandibles moving rapidly. "Your human soldiers must follow our battle protocols. We attack in formation during daylight hours only. Energy weapons only. No explosives that damage infrastructure." Ben looked at the tactical situation. The Zephyrians had landed bio-troops that were spreading across the planet like a disease. The Vex were losing ground every day because they refused to adapt their tactics. "Commander, with respect, your protocols aren't working," Ben said. "The enemy is gaining ground because they know exactly what you're going to do." "Our ways have kept civilization alive for 1,000 years, Zilth AK replied stiffly. "We will not change them for primitive humans." That night, Ben gathered his Marines in secret. "Listen up, people. The bugs want us to fight their way, but their way is getting everyone killed. We're going to do this the human way." Sergeant Kelly Wright raised her hand. "What about the alien protocols, sir?" "The protocols say we can't damage infrastructure or use explosives during official operations," Ben grinned. "But they don't say anything about what we do when we're not officially operating." At 0300 hours, Ben's Marines moved out on an unauthorized patrol. They had painted their faces with mud and wore clothes that made them blend into the darkness. Each soldier carried weapons the Vex had never seen: projectile rifles, grenades, and close combat knives. The Zephyrian bio-troops were expecting another formal battle at dawn. Instead, they found themselves under attack by humans who moved like ghosts and struck without warning. Kelly Wright led her squad into a Zephyrian camp and planted explosive charges on their equipment. When the charges went off, the entire enemy position was destroyed in seconds. Corporal Mike Johnson used his sniper rifle to pick off Zephyrian commanders from over a mile away. The aliens couldn't understand how their leaders kept dying when there were no energy weapon signatures. By dawn, 3 Zephyrian positions had been completely eliminated. The surviving enemy troops were confused and frightened. They had never faced an enemy that attacked in darkness, used explosions, and seemed to enjoy the fighting. "Sir," reported one of the Zephyrian officers to his commander. "The humans, they fight like animals. They have no honor, no rules. They actually seem to be having fun killing us." When morning came, the Vex Collective found the Zephyrian positions empty except for wreckage and bodies. Commander Zilth AK was furious when he discovered what the humans had done. "Colonel Hayes, your soldiers violated every protocol of civilized warfare." Ben shrugged. "Commander, my soldiers eliminated 3 enemy positions without losing a single man. The protocols you wanted us to follow would have gotten half my people killed and accomplished nothing. You used explosives. You attacked at night. You targeted officers specifically." "Yes, sir, we did. And it worked." The argument was interrupted by an urgent message. More Zephyrian reinforcements were landing on the other side of the planet. The Vex forces there were being overrun and needed immediate help. "It will take 3 days to move our troops there using proper transportation," Zilth AK said desperately. Ben smiled. "Commander, my people can be there in 6 hours. But we do it our way." As Ben's Marines loaded into their fast transport ships, he received a message from Admiral Cross back on Earth. Human forces across the galaxy were reporting similar successes. Alien commanders were shocked by human tactics, but they couldn't argue with the results. The Galactic Council had expected humans to provide basic support and follow orders. Instead, they were getting warriors who thought differently, fought differently, and won battles that other species considered impossible. The war was about to become very interesting. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had seen many strange things since the war began, but nothing prepared her for what she discovered in the medical bay of Council Station Omega. Alien patients filled every bed, their bodies racked with diseases that seemed to eat them from the inside. "Doctor, we've lost another Altari patient," said the crystalline nurse, her light flickering sadly. "The Zephyrian bioweapon is spreading faster than we can treat it." Elena looked at the readings from the latest victim. The Zephyrian Empire had developed weapons that used living organisms to kill their enemies. Viruses, bacteria, and stranger things that turned the victim's own body against them. "Have any humans been exposed to these bioweapons?" Elena asked. The nurse's crystal body brightened with confusion. "Humans? Why would that matter? The bioweapons kill all carbon-based life forms." Elena pulled up the medical records from recent battles. Human soldiers had been in combat zones where other species died from biological contamination, but the human casualty reports showed something interesting. Humans were dying from energy weapons and explosions, but not from the bioweapons that killed other species. "I need to run some tests," Elena said. 3 days later, Elena stood before a group of alien medical officers with results that shocked everyone. She had tested human blood, tissue, and genetic samples against every known Zephyrian bioweapon. "The results are clear," she announced. "Humans are naturally immune to 97% of Zephyrian biological weapons." Dr. Vexthal, the insectoid head of medical research, clicked his mandibles in disbelief. "Impossible. These weapons kill everything." "Not humans," Elena replied. "Earth's ecosystem is incredibly hostile. Our world has viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungi that make Zephyrian bioweapons look harmless. Humans evolved on a planet that was constantly trying to kill us with biological agents. The implications hit everyone at the same time. If humans could survive in areas contaminated by Zephyrian bioweapons, they could go places no other species could enter." Elena's discovery reached General Marcus Stone just as he was planning the defense of the Helios colony cluster. The Zephyrians had taken 3 planets in the system and turned them into biological weapon factories. Any alien who went near them died within minutes. "So you're telling me my people can walk around on those death worlds like they're taking a stroll in the park?" Marcus asked Elena over the video link. "Not exactly like a park," Elena replied. "The bioweapons will still make humans sick. But where other species die in minutes, humans might feel like they have a bad cold." Marcus called Sergeant Kelly right into his office. She had proven herself during the ground fighting on Sanctum 7 and had volunteered for the most dangerous missions. "Kelly, I have a job for you. It's probably suicide, but it might save 1,000,000 lives." Kelly grinned. "Those are my favorite kind of missions, sir." Marcus explained the situation. The planet Helios 3 had been evacuated when the Zephyrians covered it with bioweapons, but 3,000 Altari civilians were trapped in underground shelters. Every rescue attempt had failed because the rescue teams died before they could reach the survivors. "The good news is that you won't die from the bioweapons," Marcus said. "The bad news is that the planet is still crawling with Zephyrian troops who will try to kill you the old-fashioned way." Kelly assembled a team of 12 volunteers. Each human had been tested to confirm their immunity to Zephyrian bioweapons. They loaded their ship with simple protective gear and headed for Helios 3. When they arrived, the planet looked dead. The atmosphere was thick with spores and floating organisms that glowed with sickly light. The landing zone was covered in a substance that looked like moving carpet. "Remember, people," Kelly said as they prepared to leave their ship. "The air won't kill us, but the locals might. Stay alert." The moment they stepped outside, alarms started going off. The Zephyrian troops couldn't believe what they were seeing. Humans were walking around in areas that should have killed them instantly. "How are they still alive?" transmitted a Zephyrian commander to his base. "The bioconcentration here would kill an Altari in 30 seconds. Kelly's team moved toward the underground shelters where the civilians were trapped. The path was covered with bioweapons that made the air shimmer and burn. Other species would have been dead before they took 10 steps. The humans just kept walking. Halfway to their destination, they encountered a Zephyrian patrol. The aliens were wearing full environmental suits to protect themselves from their own weapons. The humans were wearing basic masks and light clothing. The fight was over quickly. The Zephyrians were clumsy in their protective gear, while the humans moved freely. When the shooting stopped, Kelly's team continued toward the shelters. They found the Altari civilians huddled in a deep bunker, their crystal bodies dim with despair. The aliens couldn't believe it when humans appeared at their shelter entrance. "How are you alive?" asked the Altari leader, his voice weak from hunger. "The surface is death itself." "Different planet, different immune system," Kelly replied. "We're here to get you out." The evacuation took 18 hours. Kelly's team made multiple trips, carrying Altari civilians through areas where the bioweapons made the air thick as soup. Each trip meant walking through contamination that would have killed the aliens instantly. The Zephyrian forces tried to stop them, but they faced the same problem as before. Their troops needed heavy protection to survive their own weapons, while the humans moved like they were on a normal mission. When the last civilian was rescued, the Zephyrian base commander sent a desperate message to his superiors: "The humans are immune to our bioweapons. They walk through our most lethal contamination zones without protection. Request immediate reinforcement with conventional weapons." Back at Council Station Omega, Chancellor Thexvar received the reports with growing concern. Humans were not only surviving in bioweapon zones, they were actually thriving there. "They rescued 3,000 civilians from a planet we had written off as dead," he told the council. "Our best warriors couldn't survive for 5 minutes on that world." Ambassador Lisa Grant stood before the council with new information. Earth has 43 worlds with environments that other species consider uninhabitable. Desert planets, ice worlds, high radiation systems. Our people live and work in all of them. The implications were staggering. Humans could operate in environments that would kill other species, making them immune to the Zephyrians' most effective weapons. Dr. Elena Rodriguez published her findings in the Council Medical Database. Within days, human immune systems became the most studied topic in galactic medicine. Scientists from dozens of species tried to understand how humans had evolved to survive Earth's hostile environment. But the military applications were more immediate. General Stone began planning operations that no other species could attempt. If humans could survive where others couldn't, they could strike at targets that had been considered unreachable. The Galactic Council had invited humanity to the war expecting them to provide basic support. They were discovering that humans could go places and do things that no other species had ever imagined. The war was about to enter a new phase, and the Zephyrians were about to learn that their most devastating weapons were useless against an enemy that had evolved on the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. The Battle of the Trinary Gates was supposed to be a simple defensive action. Admiral Ryan Cross watched from the command ship UES Liberty as the largest Zephyrian fleet ever assembled approached the strategic checkpoint between 3 star systems. "Admiral, the alien fleet commanders are requesting formation assignments," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Davis. Ryan looked at the tactical display. The Galactic Council had assembled ships from 12 different species, but they all wanted to fight the same way, in rigid formations that had worked for thousands of years. "Tell them we'll coordinate our own formations," Ryan replied. "And send a message to all human ships: it's time to show these aliens how Earth fights." The Council fleet formed up in the traditional pattern. Massive battleships in the center, smaller ships in supporting positions, fighters flying in neat squadrons. It was impressive and orderly, just like every space battle the aliens had ever fought. The Zephyrian fleet was different. Their ships looked like living creatures, constantly changing shape and adapting to threats. As they approached, they began to split and merge in patterns that confused the alien commanders. "Admiral Kethran of the Altari fleet is requesting battle orders," Sarah reported. Before Ryan could respond, the Zephyrian ships opened fire. Their bioweapons reached across space, turning some of the alien ships into twisted metal and flesh. The traditional formations began to collapse as ships panicked and broke away. "Kethran's flagship has been destroyed," Sarah announced. "The Altari are requesting emergency command transfer." Ryan stood up. All human ships, this is Admiral Cross. We're taking command of this battle. Execute Plan Chaos. What happened next had never been seen in galactic warfare. The human ships broke their formations completely. Instead of fighting as a single fleet, they split into small groups that moved independently. Captain Tony Martinez, commanding the UES Retribution, led his task force directly through the enemy formation. When Zephyrian bioships tried to merge and trap him, Tony did something no alien would consider. He ejected his crew in escape pods and rammed his ship straight into the largest enemy vessel. Retribution to all ships, Tony transmitted from his escape pod. That's how you deal with bioships that think they're invincible. Commander Susan Clark was having her own success with the fighter squadrons. Instead of the neat formations alien pilots used, she led her squadron through the gas giant at the edge of the system. Follow me through the upper atmosphere, Susan commanded. These Zephyrian ships have never fought in a gravity well. The human fighters dove into the gas giant's atmosphere, using their atmospheric flight training to maneuver in ways that confused the enemy. Zephyrian bioships that followed them found themselves struggling against gravity and atmospheric pressure they weren't designed to handle. This is impossible, transmitted a Zephyrian pilot as his ship tumbled out of control. How are they flying inside a planet? Susan's squadron emerged from the gas giant behind the main enemy fleet, striking targets that had no idea they were under attack from below. But the real surprise came when the human ships began to change shape. Admiral Cross had kept humanity's best secret: their ships were modular. What looked like one large vessel could split into several smaller ships, or multiple ships could combine into a single massive unit. The UES Vengeance separated into 3 parts while under fire, each piece attacking a different target. The enemy had been aiming at one ship and suddenly found themselves fighting 3. Admiral, the enemy fleet is in complete confusion, reported Sarah. They don't know how to respond to our tactics. The Zephyrian fleet commander sent increasingly desperate messages to his forces. Reform defensive positions. Use standard bioweapon deployment. Follow the protocols. But there were no protocols for fighting an enemy that refused to follow any rules. Captain Nick Parker commanded a group of smaller ships that had linked together to form a temporary battleship. When the enemy concentrated fire on them, the ships separated and scattered in different directions. By the time the Zephyrians realized what had happened, the human ships had regrouped behind them. "Sir, their fleet is trying to retreat," Sarah announced. Ryan shook his head. "Not today. All ships, pursuit formation. Don't let any of them escape to report our tactics." The pursuit lasted 6 hours. Human ships that could change configuration and break traditional formation rules hunted down Zephyrian vessels that were built for conventional warfare. The enemy's bioships were impressive, but they couldn't adapt fast enough to match human unpredictability. When the battle ended, the Trinary gates were secure and the largest Zephyrian fleet in history had been destroyed. The cost was heavy. Humanity had lost 30 ships and over 2,000 crew members. But they had proven something that shocked the galaxy. The alien survivors couldn't stop talking about what they had seen. Chancellor Thexvar arrived at the battle site 3 days later to survey the wreckage. "Admiral Cross," the crystalline alien said, his voice filled with something that might have been fear. "Your tactics, they violate every principle of civilized warfare." Ryan looked tired but satisfied. "Chancellor, civilized warfare was losing this war. Our tactics won it. But the cost," Thexvar continued. "You deliberately sacrificed ships and crew. Captain Martinez's ramming attack was suicide. Tony Martinez saved his crew and took out a ship 3 times his size," Ryan replied. "Every one of my people who died today saved 10 alien lives. That's mathematics, not suicide." Commander Susan Clark was debriefing her surviving pilots when she received a message from the Vex Collective Command. They wanted to know how human fighters had managed to fly through a gas giant's atmosphere. "Simple," Susan explained to the insectoid officers. "We learned to fly on a planet with weather. Storms, wind, atmospheric pressure changes. Your pilots train in space, where everything is predictable." The implications were disturbing to the alien military leaders. Humans didn't just think differently about warfare, they had grown up in an environment that made them naturally unpredictable. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was treating wounded soldiers from both sides when she noticed something interesting. The human casualties were mostly from energy weapons and explosions. The alien casualties included many who had been driven insane by the stress of fighting an incomprehensible enemy. "They don't understand us," she told Ambassador Lisa Grant. "Their whole concept of warfare is based on rules and protocols that we completely ignore." Lisa was meeting with nervous council representatives who wanted to discuss human military methods. "Ambassador Grant," said the Narration delegate, "your species' approach to combat is deeply concerning. You seem to enjoy the chaos and destruction." "We don't enjoy war," Lisa replied firmly. "But when we fight to win. And we're very good at it." The victory at Trinary Gates had consequences beyond the immediate military success. Word spread throughout the galaxy that humans fought differently, thought differently, and won battles that other species considered impossible. Some alien species began requesting human military advisors. Others started developing countermeasures against human tactics. But everyone agreed on one thing: the humans had changed the nature of the war. Admiral Cross received new orders from Earth. Instead of supporting alien fleets, human forces would now lead major operations. The Galactic Council had finally admitted what everyone knew: humans were the most effective military force in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was beginning to understand what they were really fighting. Their bioweapons were useless, their traditional tactics were failing, and their enemies were growing stronger and more confident. The war was far from over, but the momentum had shifted. Humanity had proven they belonged on the battlefield, and they were just getting started. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked into the council chambers knowing that today's meeting would be different. The alien delegates who had once ignored her now watched her every move with something between respect and fear. Chancellor Thexvar's crystal body flickered with nervous energy as he called the session to order. "We are here to discuss the recent irregularities in human military conduct." Lisa took her seat calmly. Around her, representatives from dozens of alien species whispered among themselves. The humans had won too many battles, saved too many lives, and broken too many rules. "Ambassador," said Council Member Nexthal, his insectoid mandibles clicking rapidly, "your species' recent actions have raised serious concerns about military protocol." "Which actions specifically?" Lisa asked, though she knew exactly what they meant. The main screen lit up with footage from the Battle of Narration Station. Captain Luke Davidson's ship, the UES Perseverance, was shown refusing direct orders from Council Command to abandon a rescue mission. Captain Davidson was ordered to retreat when the station became indefensible, Thexvar explained. Instead, he chose to violate direct orders and continue an impossible rescue operation. Lisa watched the footage of what happened next. Luke had coordinated with the trapped Narration scientists to turn their research station into a massive bomb. When 3 Zephyrian capital ships moved in to capture the facility, the explosion destroyed all of them and cleared the system of enemy forces. The captain saved over 400 researchers and eliminated a major enemy fleet, Lisa pointed out. "I fail to see the problem." "The problem," clicked Nexthal angrily, "is that he deliberately destroyed a research facility worth billions of credits. No civilized species would sacrifice infrastructure for tactical advantage." Lisa stood up, her patience finally running out. No civilized species was winning this war before humans arrived. Your civilized approach was getting everyone killed. The council chamber erupted in angry alien voices. Some delegates supported human methods, others demanded restrictions on human independence. Through it all, Chancellor Thexvar remained silent, his crystal form pulsing with conflicted light. Meanwhile, in a secure communication room, Commander Alex Turner was reviewing intelligence that made the Council's complaints seem trivial. His network of human spies had uncovered something that would shock the galaxy. "Ma'am, you need to see this," Alex told Lisa when she returned from the Council session. The evidence was damning. Several Council members had been secretly negotiating with the Zephyrian Empire. The plan was simple: offer humanity as tribute in exchange for peace with the rest of the galaxy. "They're planning to sell us out," Alex explained. According to these communications, They believe the Zephyrians will be satisfied with destroying Earth and enslaving our colonies. Lisa stared at the decoded messages. How long has this been going on? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. The Altari and Vex collective leaders are definitely involved. Some of the smaller species too. The betrayal was worse than simple cowardice. The aliens who had invited humanity to join their war were now planning to sacrifice them to save themselves. Dr. Karen Foster was dealing with her own problems in the Council's Ethics Committee. As humanity's representative, she faced daily accusations about human military methods. Dr. Foster, said Committee Chair Veltherin, we must discuss the psychological impact of human warfare on other species. Karen reviewed the reports. Alien soldiers who fought alongside humans were developing what the committee called adaptation stress. They were starting to think and fight like humans. Some Altari units are now using explosive weapons, Veltherin continued. Vex collective soldiers have been observed fighting at night without authorization. This influence is spreading throughout our military forces. And this is bad because? Karen asked. Because it violates fundamental principles of civilized warfare. Your species is corrupting others with your primitive methods. Karen had heard enough. Our primitive methods are winning battles that your civilized approach lost. Maybe the problem isn't that we're corrupting your soldiers, maybe the problem is that your way of fighting doesn't work. The committee members looked shocked. No species had ever directly challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. Dr. Foster, Veltherin said carefully, are you suggesting that thousands of years of military evolution were wrong? I'm suggesting that if your military evolution led to the Zephyrians nearly winning this war, then yes, it was wrong. The tension in Council space stations was growing daily. Human success in battle was undeniable, but it came with methods that terrified other species. Some aliens began to wonder if humanity posed a bigger long-term threat than the Zephyrians. Captain Jake Morrison was experiencing this fear firsthand. During a joint operation with an Altari fleet, he noticed that the alien crews avoided contact with his human sailors. Commander Thex Cole, Jake asked the Altari officer, is there a problem with my crew? The crystalline alien's light dimmed with embarrassment. Captain Morrison, your people, they seem to enjoy the combat too much. My crew finds this disturbing. Jake thought about this. It was true that humans approached warfare differently than other species. Where aliens saw battle as a necessary evil, humans often found satisfaction in overcoming challenges and protecting others. Commander, we don't enjoy killing. But we do take pride in being good at protecting people. That's what soldiers are supposed to do. But the explanation didn't help. The gulf between human and alien thinking was growing wider as the war continued. The breaking point came when Alex Turner's intelligence reached Admiral Ryan Cross. The evidence of the Council's planned betrayal was overwhelming. They want to hand us over to the Zephyrians, Ryan told his senior staff. The same aliens we've been dying to protect are planning to sacrifice us to save themselves. Colonel Ben Hayes slammed his fist on the table. Sir, we've lost over 15,000 good soldiers protecting these cowards. And they want to sell us out? What are our options? Asked Captain Tony Martinez, who had survived his ramming attack at Trinary Gates. Ryan studied the strategic reports. Human forces were scattered throughout the galaxy, often operating independently or in small groups with alien units. If the Council moved against them, humans would be outnumbered and surrounded. We have one advantage, Ryan said finally. They're still afraid of what we might do if they betray us openly. They need to find a way to eliminate us without making it look like betrayal. Ambassador Lisa Grant received an emergency message from Admiral Cross just as she was preparing for another council session. The message was brief but clear: the council is planning to sacrifice humanity to end the war. Prepare for emergency withdrawal. Lisa looked around the council chambers where she had spent months fighting for humanity's right to exist. The same aliens who had desperately needed human help were now planning to destroy them. But humans had one more surprise for the galaxy. They had never trusted completely in alien promises, and they had been preparing for the possibility of betrayal since the beginning. All across known space, human commanders received coded messages. Operation Prometheus was authorized. If the aliens wanted to see what humans could really do when they stopped holding back, they were about to get their wish. The Galactic Council thought they could control humanity by inviting them to war and then sacrificing them when it became convenient. They were about to discover that humans had contingency plans for everything, including the betrayal of their allies. The war was about to change again, but this time the aliens might find themselves fighting against the humans they had underestimated for so long. Admiral Ryan Cross stood before the holographic display in his command center, looking at a map of the galaxy that had changed dramatically over the past 3 days. Red markers showed the positions of human forces, and for the first time since the war began, they were no longer following alien orders. Operation Prometheus is now active, Ryan announced to his senior staff. As of 0800 hours Earth Standard Time, all human forces are operating under independent command. The operation had been planned in secret for months. When Commander Alex Turner's intelligence revealed the Council's planned betrayal, Ryan had activated protocols that most of his own officers hadn't known existed. "Sir," asked Colonel Janet Morris, "what about our treaties with the Council?" "The treaties became void when they decided to hand us over to the Zephyrians," Ryan replied. "From now on, we fight this war our way." Captain Nick Parker was already putting the new orders into action. His stealth ship, the UES Shadow, was approaching the Zephyrian home system of Zirion, carrying weapons that no alien species had ever seen. Beginning deployment of nanite packages, Nick reported to his crew. The Shadow's cargo bay held thousands of microscopic machines designed by Earth's best scientists. These nanites could infiltrate Zephyrian bioships and turn them against each other. The Zephyrians had always believed their biotechnology made them superior to other species. Their ships were living creatures that could adapt and heal themselves. They had never considered that their greatest strength could become their weakness. The nanites spread through the Zephyrian fleet like an infection, but instead of killing the bioships, they reprogrammed them. Within hours, Zephyrian vessels began attacking each other, their biological systems turning them into cannibals. "This is impossible," transmitted the Zephyrian fleet commander as his own ship tried to consume the vessel next to it. "Our bioships are attacking each other." Nick smiled as he watched the enemy fleet tear itself apart. That's what happens when you build ships out of living things and then meet humans who understand biology. On the other side of the galaxy, Colonel Beth Stevens was implementing another part of Operation Prometheus. Instead of working with alien military units, she was training resistance fighters on occupied worlds. "Listen carefully," Beth told a group of Altari civilians who had volunteered to fight the occupation of their homeworld. "Your people have been trying to fight the Zephyrians using traditional military tactics. That's why you lost." The crystalline aliens flickered with uncertainty. Their entire culture was built around order and predictability. "We will teach you guerrilla warfare," Beth continued. "You will learn to strike without warning, disappear into the civilian population, and make the occupiers afraid to leave their bases." It went against everything the Altari believed about proper conduct, but they were desperate. Their world had been under Zephyrian control for 6 months, and conventional resistance had failed completely. Beth's human instructors taught the aliens techniques that had been developed on Earth over thousands of years of warfare. How to make explosives from common materials. How to gather intelligence without being detected. How to spread propaganda that would turn the population against the occupiers. "Remember," said Sergeant Kelly Wright as she demonstrated urban combat techniques, "the goal isn't to win fair fights. The goal is to make the enemy so nervous and paranoid that they make mistakes." Within weeks, Zephyrian forces on dozens of occupied worlds were facing a kind of resistance they had never encountered. Instead of the formal uprisings they expected, they found themselves dealing with an invisible enemy that struck without warning and vanished without trace. The Galactic Council was watching these developments with growing alarm. Chancellor Thexvar called an emergency session to address what he called the human problem. "They are operating without authorization," he announced to the assembled delegates. "Human forces are conducting unauthorized attacks on Zephyrian positions and training insurgents on occupied worlds." Ambassador Lisa Grant stood to respond, but her words shocked the Council. "The authorization was revoked when you decided to negotiate our surrender to the Zephyrians." The chamber fell silent. The Council's secret negotiations were supposed to remain hidden. "We know about your plan to sacrifice humanity to achieve peace," Lisa continued. "Commander Turner's intelligence network has been monitoring your communications for months." Council member Nexthal's mandibles clicked nervously. "Ambassador, even if such discussions occurred, they were merely contingency planning." "Contingency planning to commit genocide," Lisa replied coldly. "Well, here's our contingency plan. Either the Council supports our offensive operations against the Zephyrians, or we withdraw from this alliance and prosecute the war independently." The threat was real. Human forces had proven themselves more effective than any alien military unit. Without them, the war against the Zephyrians would be lost within months. "You cannot threaten the Council," Fexvar said, but his crystal form was dim with worry. "I'm not threatening anyone," Lisa answered. "I'm simply explaining our position. Humanity will continue fighting the Zephyrians with or without alien support. The choice is yours." Admiral Cross was already demonstrating what human independence meant. Instead of following the Council's defensive strategy, he had authorized direct attacks on Zephyrian strongholds that aliens considered impregnable. Captain Tony Martinez led a fleet of modified ships toward the fortress world of Zephyros Beta. The planet was surrounded by biomines that would kill any approaching vessel, but Tony had a typically human solution. "All ships, prepare for asteroid bombardment," he commanded. "We're going to clear a path the hard way." Human ships had been equipped with magnetic accelerators that could launch chunks of rock at incredible speeds. Instead of trying to navigate through the biomines, Tony's fleet simply destroyed them with kinetic bombardment. "Sir, the Zephyrians are requesting negotiations," reported his communications officer. "They want to know why we're not following standard siege protocols." Tony laughed. "Tell them we never read the manual. Then hit them with the second wave." The fortress world fell in 18 hours. What should have been a months-long siege ended when human forces bypassed all the traditional defenses and attacked directly. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working with human medics to treat casualties from the offensive operations when she realized something important. The Zephyrians were starting to panic. Their bioweapons aren't working, their traditional tactics are failing, and now we're attacking their core systems, she told Admiral Cross during a medical briefing. "They're making desperate moves because they don't understand how to fight us." The desperation was evident in intercepted Zephyrian communications. Their commanders were reporting impossible human abilities and demanding reinforcements that didn't exist. "The humans fight like demons," reported one Zephyrian officer. "They ignore our most deadly weapons and attack in ways that make no sense. How do we fight an enemy that has no fear?" Commander Alex Turner was monitoring these communications with satisfaction. "Sir, enemy morale is collapsing across multiple sectors. They're starting to question whether this war can be won." But the real psychological blow came when Captain Luke Davidson led a raid on a Zephyrian research facility. Instead of simply destroying it, the humans captured the alien scientists and offered them a choice: continue developing weapons for the Empire, or help humanity end the war. "Dr. Zeph Cole," Luke said to the lead researcher, "your bioweapons have killed millions of innocent people. You can continue serving the Empire that will probably execute you when this war is lost, or you can help us stop the killing." It was the first time any Zephyrian had been offered mercy instead of death. The psychological impact rippled through the Empire as news spread that humans were more interested in ending the war than seeking revenge. Within days, Zephyrian researchers and military officers began defecting to human forces. They brought with them intelligence about Empire weaknesses and the location of secret weapon facilities. The Galactic Council watched these developments with mixed feelings. Human military success was undeniable, but their methods continued to violate every principle of civilized warfare. "They're winning the war," admitted Chancellor Thexvar during a private council meeting. "But they're doing it in ways that terrify us." "Perhaps," suggested Council member Veltherin quietly, "the problem is not their methods, but our assumption that there was a civilized way to fight this war." The question facing the galaxy was simple: would they support humanity's brutal but effective campaign, or try to stop the species that was finally winning the war against the Zephyrians? Admiral Cross received reports from across human space. Operation Prometheus was succeeding beyond all expectations. The Zephyrian Empire was crumbling, alien species were requesting human military assistance, and the war was finally turning in favor of the galaxy's free peoples. But victory would come at a price that would forever change how the galaxy viewed both war and the humans who had proven so terrifyingly good at it. Commander Pete Johnson stared at the tactical display aboard the UES Constitution, watching as the largest human fleet ever assembled approached the Zephyrian capital system. After months of pushing the enemy back across the galaxy, they were finally approaching Zephyros Prime, the homeworld of the Empire that had started this war. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet," reported Lieutenant Nancy Parker, his science officer. "Whatever they're doing down there, it's using more power than most star systems generate." Pete had expected heavy defenses around the enemy capital, but the readings they were getting suggested something far worse than weapons platforms or orbital fortresses. "Get me Admiral Cross," Pete ordered. Admiral Ryan Cross appeared on the communication screen, his face grim. "I see the readings, Pete. We're looking at something that changes everything." Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been studying the energy signatures from her position aboard the hospital ship UES Mercy. What she discovered made her blood run cold. "Admiral, the Zephyrians have turned their entire planet into a biological weapon," she reported during the emergency briefing. "They're using the planet's core energy to power biogenerators that will spread death spores throughout the galaxy." The implications were staggering. If the weapon activated, it would create a wave of biological destruction that would travel through space for centuries, killing every living thing it encountered. "How long do we have?" Ryan asked. "Based on the power buildup, maybe 6 hours before they can fire," Elena replied. "And once it starts, there's no way to stop it. The spores will spread at near light speed." General Marcus Stone was coordinating the ground assault when he received the news. His Marines were preparing to land on Zephyrian military installations, but if the planet weapon activated, the entire galaxy would be doomed. "Sir, we need to stop the weapon before it fires," Colonel Ben Hayes told him. "But the biogenerators are buried deep in the planet's crust. A conventional attack won't reach them." Marcus looked at the tactical displays showing Zephyrian defenses. They had turned their homeworld into the ultimate weapon, but they had also created their own trap. The biogenerators couldn't be moved or shut down safely, they were integrated into the planet itself. "There is one solution," came a voice from the communication system. Captain Mary Bell of the experimental ship UES Genesis was requesting permission to speak. Mary's ship was humanity's most dangerous secret, a vessel powered by an artificial black hole that could generate massive gravitational fields. It had been built as a last resort weapon, something so destructive that using it would be considered an act of desperation. "Captain Bell, explain your proposal," Admiral Cross said. "Sir, if I can pilot the Genesis into the planet's core, the black hole containment failure will create a gravitational collapse. It will contain the bioweapon by collapsing the entire system into a singularity." The bridge of the Constitution fell silent. Mary was proposing to sacrifice herself, her ship, and everything within 3 star systems to stop the Zephyrian weapon. "Mary, that's suicide," Pete said quietly. "Yes, sir, it is. But it's also the only way to save the galaxy." Admiral Cross studied the tactical projections. The Genesis's artificial black hole could indeed collapse the system, but it would destroy everything within a massive radius: planets, moons, space stations, and any ships that couldn't escape in time. "How long would we have to evacuate?" Ryan asked. "Once I start the final approach, maybe 2 hours before the gravitational effects become irreversible," Mary replied. "That's enough time to get most of our people out, but any Zephyrian civilians on the planet." She didn't need to finish. There were millions of Zephyrian civilians on their homeworld, many of whom had no part in their government's genocidal plans. Dr. Elena Rodriguez immediately began coordinating evacuation efforts. "We can use the transport ships to evacuate civilian populations, but we'll need every available vessel." The race against time began immediately. Human ships spread throughout the Zephyros system, sending surrender offers to every Zephyrian installation. Some accepted, others refused, and had to be overwhelmed by force. Sergeant Kelly Wright led her Marines in the evacuation of a Zephyrian civilian shelter. The aliens cowered as human soldiers burst through their doors, expecting death. "We're here to evacuate you," Kelly announced through her translator. "Your government has built a weapon that will destroy everything in this system. We're getting you out." The Zephyrians couldn't believe what they were hearing. Their enemies were risking their own lives to save civilian populations. "Why?" asked one young Zephyrian, its bioform trembling with fear. "We are your enemies." Kelly helped the alien toward the evacuation transport. "Kid, you didn't start this war. You don't deserve to die for it." Captain Tony Martinez was evacuating a Zephyrian research station when he discovered something that changed his understanding of the enemy. The station's computers contained evidence that many Zephyrian scientists had opposed the bioweapon project. "Dr. Zefthal, why didn't your people stop this weapon from being built?" Tony asked the station's lead researcher. "We tried," the alien scientist replied sadly. "But the military government executed anyone who opposed the project. Many of us hoped that the war would end before they could complete it." Tony realized that the Zephyrian Empire, like humanity, contained both good and evil. The civilians and scientists he was evacuating were victims of their own government's extremism. Meanwhile, Captain Mary Bell was making her final preparations aboard the Genesis. She had volunteered for this mission knowing it was suicide, but seeing the evacuation efforts made her proud of what humanity had become. "Admiral Cross, all civilian evacuations are proceeding on schedule," she reported. "I'm beginning my final approach to the planet." The Genesis accelerated toward Zephyros Prime, its artificial black hole powering engines that bent space around the ship. As it approached the planet, gravitational effects began to distort the system. "Mary, you still have time to abort," Admiral Cross said. "Negative, sir. The bioweapon is charging faster than expected. If I don't do this now, it will fire before the evacuations are complete." On evacuation ships throughout the system, humans and Zephyrians worked together to save as many lives as possible. Species that had been killing each other for years were now cooperating to escape the approaching disaster. Colonel Beth Stevens was aboard a transport ship filled with Zephyrian refugees when the gravity waves hit. The ship shook as space itself warped around them. "Genesis to all ships," came Mary's final transmission. "Containment failure in 30 seconds. Thank you for the honor of serving with you all." The artificial black hole at the heart of the Genesis destabilized as the ship plunged into Zephyros Prime's core. The explosion that followed wasn't nuclear or chemical, it was gravitational, tearing apart the fundamental structure of space and time. Pete Johnson watched from the Constitution as the Zephyrian homeworld collapsed into itself, taking the bioweapon and everything else in the system with it. Where there had been planets and moons, now there was only a growing singularity that would eventually stabilize as a new black hole. "Evacuation fleet, report status," Admiral Cross commanded. The reports came in slowly. Most of the human ships had escaped the gravitational collapse, and they had managed to evacuate nearly 1 million Zephyrian civilians. But the cost was enormous, an entire star system had been destroyed to stop the bioweapon. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was treating both human and Zephyrian casualties aboard the Mercy when she received word that the Zephyrian military government had surrendered unconditionally. With their homeworld gone and their ultimate weapon destroyed, the Empire had finally accepted defeat. "It's over," she told the wounded Zephyrian officer she was treating. "The war is finally over." The alien looked at her with confusion. "You saved us. Your people died to protect our civilians. Why?" Elena thought about Mary Bell's sacrifice, about Kelly Wright risking her life to evacuate enemy civilians, about Tony Martinez showing mercy to surrendering scientists. "Because that's what humans do," she said simply. "We protect people. Even our enemies." The news of humanity's final victory spread throughout the galaxy, but it came with a sobering realization. Humans had won the war by being willing to make sacrifices that no other species would consider. They had saved the galaxy by destroying an entire star system, and they had protected their enemies' civilians even at the cost of their own lives. Admiral Cross received reports from across the galaxy. Zephyrian forces were surrendering everywhere, often to the same human units that had been evacuating their civilian populations. The war was over, but the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that they were the most effective military force in known space, but they had also shown a capacity for mercy and sacrifice that no alien species had expected. As the evacuation ships arrived at temporary refugee camps, humans and former enemies worked together to provide food, shelter, and medical care to the survivors. The species that had nearly destroyed the galaxy were being cared for by the people who had saved it. The price of victory had been enormous, but humanity had proven something that would echo through galactic history, that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction was necessary and the courage to pay any price to protect the innocent. 6 months after the destruction of Zephyros Prime, Ambassador Lisa Grant walked into the rebuilt council chambers with a confidence that had been earned through blood and sacrifice. The same alien delegates who had once dismissed humanity now rose respectfully as she entered. Chancellor Thexvar's crystal form shone brighter than before as he called the special session to order. We gather today to formally recognize the end of the Zephyrian War and to discuss the new structure of galactic civilization. Lisa looked around the chamber. Many faces were familiar, but there were new representatives as well, including former Zephyrian scientists and civilians who had been granted seats on the council after helping with the evacuation efforts. Ambassador Grant, Thexvar continued, the council wishes to formally acknowledge that our initial assessment of humanity was not merely incorrect, but catastrophically inadequate. The words carried weight because they came from a species that had never admitted error in their 1,000-year history. Your people have demonstrated military capabilities that exceed our understanding, added council member Nexthal, his insectoid form clicking with what might have been embarrassment. But more importantly, you have shown moral principles that put our own conduct to shame. Lisa stood to address the council. She had prepared this speech carefully, knowing that what she said today would shape the galaxy's future. Honored delegates, humanity did not seek this war, nor did we seek to demonstrate our military abilities. We fought because innocent people were dying and someone had to stop it. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Former Zephyrian worlds were being rebuilt with help from all species. Refugee camps had become permanent settlements where former enemies lived and worked together. But the war taught us something important, Lisa continued. The old way of doing things, rigid hierarchies, species segregation, traditional military doctrines, those approaches almost cost us everything. Council member Veltherin leaned forward. What are you proposing, Ambassador? Lisa smiled. I'm proposing that we share what we've learned. All of it. The chamber buzzed with translated conversations as aliens discussed this unprecedented offer. No species in galactic history had ever voluntarily shared military secrets with potential rivals. Admiral Cross has agreed to establish the Galactic Defense Academy, Lisa announced. Any species that wants to learn human military tactics will be welcome to attend. Admiral Ryan Cross appeared via holographic link from the Academy's new location on the moon of a former Zephyrian world. Behind him, aliens from a dozen species were training alongside human instructors. The first graduating class includes former Zephyrian officers working with their former enemies, Ryan reported. They're learning that effective warfare isn't about superior technology or rigid protocols. It's about adaptability, creativity, and the willingness to protect others. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Admiral, was leading one of the new exploration fleets. He addressed the council from the bridge of his ship as it prepared to enter previously unknown regions of space. We're finding new worlds and new species almost every week, Jake reported. Some are friendly, others are hostile, but all of them are different from what we've encountered before. The galaxy is much larger and more diverse than we ever imagined. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had her own contribution to make. Working with scientists from all species, she had developed medical protocols that could treat injuries and diseases across species lines. We've learned to work together not just in war, but in peace, she told the council. Former enemies are now colleagues in laboratories and hospitals throughout the galaxy. But the most important development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Karen Foster stood before the Council Ethics Committee with a proposal that would revolutionize galactic law. The war showed us that our old concepts of civilized warfare were actually prolonging conflicts and increasing casualties, Karen explained. We propose new ethical frameworks that prioritize protecting civilian populations and ending conflicts quickly. The frameworks were based on human military ethics, but modified for galactic civilization. They included provisions for prisoner treatment, civilian protection, and rules for ending wars without complete destruction of the losing side. These aren't just human ideas, Karen continued. They've been developed with input from ethicists and military leaders from every species, including former Zephyrians. Commander Alex Turner was addressing the intelligence community, sharing human espionage techniques that had proven so effective during the war. Information warfare saved more lives than any weapon we used, Alex explained to a room full of alien intelligence officers. But it only works when you understand that the goal is to prevent conflicts, not just win them. The changes weren't limited to military matters. Captain Tony Martinez was leading trade expeditions that established new economic relationships between former enemies. The Zephyrian biotechnology, when used for peaceful purposes, can help us terraform worlds and grow food in impossible conditions, Tony reported. Combined with human engineering and alien knowledge, we're creating prosperity that benefits everyone. But perhaps the most symbolic change was happening on the former battlefield worlds. Sergeant Kelly Wright, now a colonel, was overseeing reconstruction efforts where humans and aliens worked side by side. We're not just rebuilding cities, Kelly told the council. We're building something new. Communities where species differences are strengths, not weaknesses. Chancellor Thexvar called for a formal vote on humanity's proposals. The result was unanimous. Every species, including the former Zephyrians, supported the new galactic order. The galaxy has learned something valuable from this war, Thexvar announced. Strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to build and protect. Ambassador Lisa Grant received a final honor that surprised even her. The Council offered humanity a permanent leadership role in galactic affairs, but she declined with grace. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy, she said. We want to explore it, protect it, and help it grow. Leadership should be shared among all species. Admiral Cross was reviewing reports from across human space when he realized the full scope of what had been accomplished. Human exploration fleets were pushing into unknown regions, finding new species and new worlds. The same unpredictability that had made humans terrifying in war now drove them to become the galaxy's premier explorers. Captain Nick Parker was leading one such expedition when he discovered something that would change galactic understanding forever, evidence of ancient civilizations that had faced similar challenges thousands of years ago. Admiral, we're finding ruins of cities that show signs of multi-species cooperation, Nick reported. It looks like other species tried to build the kind of civilization we're creating now. The discovery suggested that the current galactic order wasn't just humanity's contribution, but part of a larger pattern of civilizations learning to work together. Dr. Elena Rodriguez made her own discovery while studying the medical data from the war. The stress of fighting together actually changed us, she told a gathering of scientists. Humans and aliens who served together show genetic markers indicating we're starting to adapt to each other. The implications were staggering. The war hadn't just brought species together politically, it was creating the foundation for biological cooperation as well. As the council session ended, Lisa Grant reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The Galactic Council had invited humanity to join their war expecting cannon fodder. Instead, they had unleashed the most adaptable and determined species the galaxy had ever encountered. But more than that, humanity had shown that their greatest strength wasn't their weapons or tactics, it was their refusal to accept that any situation was hopeless. When faced with extinction, they had found ways to protect both themselves and their enemies. Admiral Morrison's exploration reports continued to arrive from the galaxy's edge, describing new worlds and new possibilities. Each report reinforced the same message: the universe was vast and full of wonders, but it was also dangerous and required constant vigilance. The Council brought us into this war thinking we would be predictable and expendable, Lisa told the assembled delegates in her closing remarks. They were wrong about both things. But they were right about one thing: the galaxy needed something new. As she left the chamber, Lisa received a message from Captain Mary Bell's former crew, now serving aboard ships throughout the human fleet. They had established a memorial fund that provided education for war orphans from all species, ensuring that the children who had lost everything would have the chance to build a better future. The Galactic Council had expected humanity to fight their war and then quietly accept a minor role in galactic civilization. Instead, they had gained partners who would spend the rest of history exploring the unknown, protecting the innocent, and finding hope where others saw only despair. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time in recorded history, its peoples faced the future together. And at the edge of known space, human ships continued to push forward, carrying the message that no matter how dark things became, there was always a way forward for those brave enough to find it. The war was over, but the real adventure was just beginning.